Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. Can we turn things around? We'll find out. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and just tell me what they do all day and let me record how this affects us. Thank you for listening. What did you want to be when you grew
up? You mean other than a professional footballer or a Formula One driver? No, to be honest, I think I was one of the lucky ones who kind of hit on what they wanted to do from a young age. I've always had a love of the English language, so helping people with their words, and also a love of sport. So to go on work experience, you know, that 2-week period you get in what was year 10, whatever it's called now, I don't know, when you get to apply, and more often than not to where you want to go, you get in. And anyway, I was thankful for a company called Pro Sport Media in Leeds accepting me. And whilst I was there, I proofread and wrote copy for like official football magazines like of Leeds United, Sunderland, Manchester City, just before they were too successful. And we also did a cricket magazine, sorry. And they were great days, those. And they really got me involved and gave me a taste of the editorial industry and what it was like to write for others and edit and proofread different content. And personally, like as a sports lover, it was the perfect introduction for me, really. And I've continued that ever since, to be honest.
I mean, I suppose, you know, you did mention footballer in the kind of stereotypical what every boy wants to be kind of thing. Was the fact that, I mean, obviously you fell on your feet there, but were you kind of conscious as you were doing that kind of work that you were picking up these skills, or were you just working with, like, I suppose in the modern parlance, content that you wanted to work with? Because obviously there's an interest there. It's like you've got an interest in sport, I assume, and then you're working on sport in terms of your writing. Were you sort of conscious that you were picking up all the skills that you now have at that point, or was it just like, oh, I'm working on a thing that I'm interested in?
I mean, I knew it was part of the learning curve. It was brilliant to be able to apply the different skills that I was learning in my academic life, so like at school, and the different things I was doing kind of away from school, the different voluntary roles, to then apply it to sport and football, rugby league, motorsport, that kind of thing, be it in the work experience capacity or just kind of getting home and just thinking, oh, I'll write about this particular subject, just as a passion, really. I suppose it kind of nurtured the skills along the way as well, before, you know, really getting into it for serious terms, really.
Because I think sometimes it can be quite hard to identify those things, you know, like the transferable skills thing is always quite difficult. But I think in the first instance, it's quite difficult sometimes just to really know what skills you have and what skills you have developed. I think that's something that you kind of, after a few years of working and doing stuff, you're a bit more like, oh, I've been doing this and I've been doing that and I'm good at this and I'm not so good at that. And I don't like doing that either, but I like this.
Now that's true. And I mean, with that in mind, it soon became apparent that I was more about words than numbers. So, you know, I'm not fantastic at numbers. I can get by. I can do things, but I think leave that to the professionals who are good with numbers. So So yeah, for sure. I mean, when it was the case that you were working on different things, as I say, I suppose by proxy you're picking up these skills, and you might not altogether notice it at the time, but I suppose further down the line in what then becomes a career, you can then think back to, oh, that did stand me in good stead back in whatever year it was.
Yeah. And sometimes it's surprising things as well, like, oh, I didn't think that would ever come in useful, but it has now.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
You're listening to Series 4, Episode 21, and to my guest, Craig Smith. This is another Zoom interview recorded on the 25th of September 2023. Craig Smith is CRS Editorial, a double award-winning editor, proofreader, and copywriter with 27 years' experience. Craig is a professional member of the Chartered Institute of Editing and Proofreading. If you would like peace of mind that your non-fiction or fiction book has been edited or proofread by an active professional, if you want to advertise your business or interests with copy and blogs that will keep your audience engaged, then contact Craig. Craig at crseditorial.co.uk. Right, let's do this. Episode 101 of Working Hours with Craig Smith. So we'll jump into what are you doing now then?
So nowadays I have my own business called CRS Editorial, CRS being my initials. I've got 27 years all told, as I just mentioned about the work experience there. I thought I'd put these 27 years of experience to some good use. So starting from those early days and up to now, the present day, and along that kind of line, there's been many different roles, but cutting to the present day, got my own business, CRS Editorial, and I've become a professional member of the Chartered Institute for Editing and Proofreading, which has helped me work with numerous organisations, individuals, and on different initiatives as well. And yeah, it's a job I absolutely love. Every job's different. You know, you might get one time you might get a contemporary romance novel to edit or proofread, or you might get a business book, somebody's memoirs, an autobiography. So to being a qualified editor, proofreader, and copywriter, it is a real pleasure to be able to offer different suggestions and recommendations to authors. I mean, ultimately, obviously, it's their call, but just raising some points, it's been super helpful for the people who they have got back in touch to say that as well. Just say, oh, I didn't think about it this way, because I think we're all guilty of, when we're working so closely on something, we sometimes can't see the wood for the trees. So having that objectivity, somebody who hasn't seen the work before, I think really pays dividends. So, it might be that I've thought about something in a certain way, or when editing a book, whether it's a fact-based business book or fantasy fiction, sci-fi, whatever it may be, just making sure that the structure's correct and that it flows how it is intended to flow, how the author wishes in the end, and that the character names as well are correctly referenced, because in the fiction books, because quite often you hear bad examples of just like, oh, there might be a name mentioned in one place and it's spelled ever so slightly differently in the other place, and it's you're losing that flow and that cohesion, and ultimately, you might lose a reader due to it. So, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing now. Yes, my business. I turned 3 on, or will do, on the 1st of October 2023. So CRS Editorial is still very much in its infancy.
Yeah.
But the experience gathered over the years, just working for a couple of publishers, the last one for like 15 plus years, it's really stood me in good stead. So it's like helping, at that particular time, it was helping national governing bodies with copy and editing and proofreading key documents for stakeholders, annual reviews, all that kind of thing, really.
Yep.
Or it might be like coaching resources for coaches to take out onto the playing field. They've all kind of contributed nicely to where I find myself today, I think.
Yeah. So started in COVID then. Was that was it kind of necessitated by COVID, or was COVID kind of the step? I mean, this is the point of like how you got into it, but I mean, obviously it's your own business. It's a few years old. You passed the 3 year, well, you will be past the 3 years soon. So that's a huge milestone because, you know, it's like what, 50% fail in the first year, 80% in the first 3 years. So once you get through that, like that's a really good milestone for the business, the 3 years. Yeah, what made you want to sort of go it alone? And were you always wanting to start a business, or was this just like, well, I don't have many options and this is what I can do? Like what's behind it?
I had thought about it
Yep.
previously. I'll be completely honest with you. COVID had a huge impact on me and my work.
Mm.
If it wasn't for COVID, then maybe I wouldn't have a business.
Mm.
Obviously, there's plenty of things that COVID put paid to, and obviously the huge thing that people lost loved ones, which is the worst thing ever.
Mm.
But I mean, on a business side of things, so the people I was working for, as I say, it was like 15 plus years. I was working for a sports coaching publisher when COVID hit, and unfortunately, I was made redundant as a result of the pandemic. I had previously thought about going it alone, but I suppose it kind of gave me the jolt that I needed. So when COVID came along, it provided that push, and I just thought, yeah, why not? If I don't now, then I'm probably never going to do it. So I'd previously thought about it. You know, I mean, when you are in an employed role, you obviously have that comfort blanket of a known salary each month. You know, any additional perks that come with it, as well as being an employee. It's been an interesting and exciting ride, though. It really has. And there's plenty of people who I've found will happily help and support you, which for me, going into business back in, the 1st of October 2020, it's been priceless, because I found it truly heartwarming, to be perfectly honest with you, because I didn't know, you know, how to go about setting up a business. There was, and there still is, little old me, but I was just thinking, right, well, I'm at a point now where I want to do this. I really want to do this. And the number of supportive people out there who would afford you their time, just like an hour or a meet for a coffee or whatever. And just like, you can pick different parts, and, you know, you've got your accountancy, you've got all the different elements of being in business, these networking events, all these different elements that can come together. And at the time when, you know, the nation found that people could be so collective and kind, I was finding it in a business sense as well. And it was, as I say, it was really heartwarming.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice tale to hear, sort of coming out of COVID and through it. I mean, I would imagine, you know, obviously you're working at a sports publication and then there's no sport. How long did that process take? Was it an immediate kind of, look, there's no work for anyone, guys? Or was it they tried to keep people and then it was just, this is going on too long? And like, what was your journey through, like, basically into lockdown to starting CRS, I guess?
Yeah, so like the nation, we all kind of were working from home when, you know, things came to that particular time. And I was an editor and account manager for many national governing bodies of sport. So it was working on their creative side of things. So being an editor at the company I was at, we were lucky that we had like an in-house design team as well. So we were able to work very closely on different organizations' work. So as I mentioned, whether it be coaching resources, whether it be digital learning, it might be a printed book, all those kinds of things. So it wasn't as such when sports stopped, we saw on TV all these empty stadiums. I wasn't really affected that way, because we weren't kind of working kind of on the front line of sport like that. It was more like with governing bodies who were and who continue to kind of prepare all these different materials for coaches of the future, for different cohorts of coaches, different strands. I mean, every sport has its own methods, really.
Yeah.
So it was just working on, and their work then, obviously with because they will be needing funding from different events that they're running. Their work may well have dried up, which meant obviously a knock-on effect to the creative side of things. So everybody really has to, or continually has to, but certainly at that particular time had to kind of really think like, okay, where are we spending our budget here? And yeah, I mean, inevitably it became the case that there were redundancies as a result of not getting quite as much work in. It's just one of those things, it happened many times before, and I'm sure it'll continue to happen the world over. It's just life, isn't it? You've just got to get on with it, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult to sort of go through. Well, not always. Sometimes you're like, oh, yeah, make me redundant, pay me off, and let me out of here. But generally, yeah, it's generally not the best process. And as well, because, there was that whole period of just like, because initially it was like, oh, this won't be for long. And then it was for long. And then we were like, how long is this? Like, will this ever end? And then, so it was really difficult to plan because you really didn't know what was happening. And even though nothing was happening, there was loads of stuff going on. So like, there's all this stuff going on. But what does it mean to me? What do I have to do? I don't know. I generally just sit here and not do anything.
I mean, it was a difficult time, I won't lie. It was stressful. It was difficult because obviously you've got a mortgage to pay and things like that. And, you're thinking, right, well, where do I go from here? Yeah, I mean, probably learned around about July time that I'd be leaving in September, end of September. So I kind of had a few months to get my head around it and kind of think, well, where do I go from here? So it wasn't as though like I went on a call and found out and then that was it and didn't hear anything else. There was a process to it. So yeah, when I think back now and I just think, how was that 3 years ago? But then conversely, I sometimes think, oh, that seems a lot longer than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's weird, really. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
No, well, I mean, I've said on the podcast before as well, it's like, I mean, COVID ruined everything, but like, it kind of destroyed time, at least for a while, of like, nobody knew when things happened, or was that 2 months ago or 8 months ago? Like, what year was it? I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore. All the days are the same. Yeah. So with the plan, like, was it kind of, you kind of jumped straight to, well, I'll go into business. I've got some contacts. I can make a go of this. I've been doing this for years. I can't do anything else. Was that kind of the thinking? Or were you like, I'll go into other jobs or I'll find another place? Or was it just like, this is the time, this is the window. If I don't try it now, I'll never try it. Like, where were you kind of leaning? Or was it a bit of everything?
It was a mix. I did think, well, I've done this and I really enjoy doing this. So writing, interviewing people, writing feature articles, and also editing and proofreading for publications. It's always something that I've enjoyed doing. And I thought, well, I don't really want to stop just because like it may be the case I've got to stop like now with this company. But yeah, I didn't want to stop. So once I'd taken stock, I can't just kind of sit around. I need to be active. I need to be doing things. So I applied to work for the Royal Mail at the time. So up in their big distribution centre in Leeds. And there was a mail sorter there for probably nearly a year, something like that, and going back at different intervals. Because, I mean, I wanted that interaction. I wanted the income, of course, like we all need. But I wanted that interaction with people. I didn't want to be sat at home thinking, right, well, okay, now it's me. Where do I go? And I think over the course of 3 years, if I just fast forward to the present day, I think I've come to realize that even as a business owner, yes, I'm a sole trader. Yes, I'm working in a small room in my house, but there's always opportunities to go out and meet people. So I absolutely love the fact you can go like these different networking events. I mentioned to you before, just off air, I run like a networking event around Roundhay Park. I love doing that because it gets me out of the house, but it also means that I can go and meet new people, find out all the interesting things about their business as well, about them as people, and look to try and connect, because there's been instances where, quite a few instances, in fact, where there's, I'll meet one person one week, either on the networking or the networking different events. And then I think, oh, yeah, bear that person in mind because I've got such and such a contact for future. So yeah, it's having that interaction, which I think we all need, don't we?
Yeah.
But I would say, to answer your question in a roundabout way, I would say there's been a mix. So definitely a passion and a desire to continue doing what I'm doing, but also just making sure, obviously, I'm still, interacting with people as well. And as I say, that's where an element of the Royal Mail came in as well, because I wanted to still be active. I didn't want to just be sat at home. And it did, because at the time, obviously, Royal Mail were key workers. So went in and did the mail sorting. It was obviously a very busy time because you had all the COVID tests. They obviously took priority. So you had, obviously, the Track 24 always for them and things like that. See, I even remember some of the terminology. But yeah, it was just crazy times. But yeah.
That'll be one of those experiences, though, that'll stay with you forever, sort of thing, of like being there at that time. Right, yeah.
Yeah, I dare say it will. I mean, it will, yeah. I mean, there were really, really busy times. I think it's always busy.
Yeah.
Royal Mail. When you see the trucks in and out, loading the trucks, and you see all the posts, and you just think, wow, there's literally just an endless view of post here. But yeah, I think it will do, because I think it will for everybody.
Yeah.
And, you will think, oh yes, I did this, or I was here when COVID hit, kind of.
Well, I think people are forgetting, but there will be a big, as much as we're forgetting, there'll be a big remembering as well. But I think on a personal level, most of us, some you want to block out and some you don't want to block out. And it's, yeah. Well, one thing I want to pick up there. So obviously with copywriting, editing and so on, working with words, working with text, it's very easy to imagine that as quite sort of lonely, quiet, sort of not that social a role. But I mean, you've mentioned a couple of times there, like how important it is to sort of make those connections and collaborative working and so on. I mean, it's as well, when you were talking about the sports publication, like I just got the impression that lots of meetings of various working and coming to decisions collectively and so on. So what's like the mix for you? Do you get, like, is it largely working with other people, or is it more working on your own and then a little bit of working with people, or do you get like a nice balance of the two?
I'd say it's mainly working solo. So being commissioned for a project and then working on it, and then yes, you've got your meetings in between, and you're always in constant communication with each other regarding, obviously, where we're at with a project, or if there's any delays or whatever it may be. Or it might be the case that there will be kind of additional parts that people want to bolt onto a project and things like that. So you're always kind of in communication with the client. So yeah, I mean, I would say it is predominantly, once I've got a project, I will block out time for that particular person's project, and then just kind of head down and working on it. So yeah, but certainly, I mean, there's a good mix of that, and as I say, attending different face-to-face events, and getting to know quite a few different people in and around Leeds as a result as well, for the different businesses that they run. So yeah, I think I'm finding a good mix. I did struggle a little bit at first with it, if I'm completely honest. You're going from an environment where you're surrounded by like 2 or 3 units and there's like 80 people, and being where I was for the time I knew pretty much everybody in the building. So those kind of moments where you would go make a cup of tea and you'd end up chatting to somebody in personnel, let's say, if they were in the kitchen area, you kind of do miss that, I think. But yeah, I think it's the nature of the beast now, I suppose, isn't it? With being not just self-employed, but also working from home, because I think there's a lot of people still working from home. And I think that's from the things that I've heard and read, And when I've chatted to people as well about their experiences, is that there's no substitute for that interaction, really, of going in and, meeting people.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that in terms of what people have sort of said on here. There's lots of great benefits from working home, and most of us who have that ability kind of enjoy that. But I know plenty of people who hate working from home, would rather always be in the office. And I think some of that's dependent on various lockdown experiences. But I'll do a quick, because I don't always do it now, but I used to talk a lot during lockdown about the sort of, wellness kind of stuff and your work-life balance. Are you like, how was that going through COVID? Was that something that you were already quite good with? Or how did you find the experience of kind of separating work and home, especially starting a business where kind of you don't have set hours and there are never enough hours in the day? And like, can you do it at all, or is that a meaningless distinction now? Like, how do you approach that?
I found it difficult. I found it difficult, definitely. So when we were kind of sent home, my wife and I were working on the kitchen table. Like, we were kind of always in each other's pocket. It wasn't until maybe when it looked like it was becoming more of a, semi-permanent / nearly permanent thing, that was the case. That, right, well, this room in the house, we'll clear that and we'll kind of turn it into a bit of an office, with a view to especially then finding out about what was to come with the redundancy, forget my words out. I thought, well, now obviously this is permanent for me, so I want this to be, I can't work on the kitchen table. I want to set up.
Yeah.
For your own health as well, because, you don't want to be sat at a kitchen table, do you, hunched over a laptop when you're thinking about, like, you sat down for a long period of the day, your posture. So I've got a stand-up desk now, which is really good because, it does mean that even when I am working, I can be stood up as well. So, and sometimes, I will be so engrossed in something that I won't realize, thinking, I've been stood up for about 3 hours here.
Yeah.
And it's good in that respect, really. And to touch upon an answer to your previous question as well, which I don't believe I did, the different elements of the job. So if I'm engrossed in an edit, then being in the quiet is perfect. If I'm in between jobs and say I'm on LinkedIn or whatever, or, going through different plans for the week, then a little bit of background music is absolutely fine for me. But or doing the co-working days, which I also like doing. But yes, if I'm, given the nature of my job, if I am editing or proofreading or obviously interviewing somebody and then doing a write-up, I know everybody's different, but I quite like to be kind of in the headspace of, right, this is quiet time. This is my time that I need to concentrate. And even then, to be honest, even when I have music on at home, I can't work alongside music that has words, because I find myself singing along. So I choose things like classical music just playing in the background, and I find it quite soothing.
Yeah.
I'm no aficionado, don't get me wrong, but I think it's quite soothing. And even though it sounds silly, because I've put the music on, I've actively searched for it, I then kind of zone it out.
No, it makes
allows that concentration.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But it's also, like, I don't know if this resonates with you, but I mean, obviously when I'm editing audio, it's quite difficult for me to have other sounds on. But one of the things that I think it's about making your work comfortable, because a lot of the time you get that work feeling where you're like, oh, I've got to do this. Like, I've got to make myself sit down now and spend however many hours reading this thing, even if it's amazing and you're enjoying it. There's that kind of resistance thing. You can put a bit of music on and just make it feel a little bit warmer, like a bit of mood lighting or whatever. And it's just like, feel a bit more comfortable doing the work, and it makes it that little bit more attractive to do.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah. And I think I am getting better at the work-life balance. I wasn't good at it to start with. So making that transition from the kitchen table to an office, I was still finding myself, even up until like 6 months ago, maybe, still finding myself just not being able to switch off.
Working too late into the evening.
You're working too late into the evening, yes. And also, even if it wasn't a deadline as such, I like to get ahead when I can do. So I would, I mean, not at the expense of like the quality of work, but I'll realize, right, well, I'm getting tired now. I'm probably not going to be operating at my best. So therefore, let's call it a day on this particular project. But I will continue to do things on the to-do list when I probably should be, just laid out watching TV, or going for a walk or whatever. But that's a big thing for me as well. Whatever the weather, I always go out on a dinner time just to try and reset, go out for a little, not too far, probably about a lap. It's not the most picturesque. It's just, near to the ring road and that, but it allows me to reset ahead of kind of come back for lunch and then the afternoon shift, as it were.
Yeah. And plus, I mean, just being outside, like actually seeing the day, it's one thing looking at it through the window, but, to feel the temperature and the level of wind and everything, and just, it's good for, like, it's got to be good for your mental health, just getting out of the house and getting some fresh air for a bit every day. Because I notice it when if I've had a day or two where I've just been in, like, it just doesn't feel good for you, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I'd most definitely agree with that. And whatever the weather as well, I think it's nice to go out in the sunshine. I mean, I know it's not too enticing to go out when it's absolutely chucking it down, but it is what it is. I think I'd rather get wet than lose a day's productivity for just being in the house all of the time.
Yeah. And if you haven't got like a job, I mean, the job there is going out and being outside. It's not like you have to go somewhere for ages, getting really, really soaking wet. You can prepare for that. You can be like, I'll just take a brolly out. I'm only going to be out for a while. So it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, right, where are we? Well, let's do Brexit, because I know that will be quite short. So the question here is, have you noticed any change in your work since we have Brexited? Either good or bad, or no change at all? Like, what's your experience been work-wise?
To be honest, I'm not sure Brexit's really had that much effect on my work. Though some of the subsidiaries of businesses that I've worked with are abroad, most, if not all of my clients are primarily UK-based. So I don't think I've felt the effects of Brexit as much as many others will have done.
I mean, I guess even if you had work in Europe, it's not like they need to go through customs or anything now, or need additional checks, because it'll all just be online. It's text-based. It's virtually frictionless material, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that's true. Yes, it's not as if, it's a goods and service, but it's, we can, the kind of work that I do can all be done online.
Yeah. The only barrier is the language, isn't it, really?
It is. It is. And the only thing that I edit in and proofread in is English. I do know people who can translate things, so that's great. But I mean, it's not as if, I have to fill a cargo container ship or anything like that with goods. It's just, it's all from one person, be that an individual or a business, to be and back.
Cool. So I'll save social media. We'll come back to social media. I'll do the climate change question next. I mean, obviously, your work, I guess, in terms of what you would be able to do, it's just kind of like basic green policies. But in terms of Leeds has declared a climate emergency, in terms of climate change, what can you do in your work around awareness raising, adaptation, mitigation, those kind of things? Is that something that's even on your radar, or is it like, well, I'm fairly low impact anyway, most people will email me stuff, I'm not using all the paper in the world? Like, what's your attitude and approach with that?
I mean, to use the term you just used there, low impact. Yes, I am fairly low impact, but I think we all have a responsibility, and I take it quite seriously because I'm a lover of nature and the world in general. So I like to align my personal views with those of my business, especially given the fact there's only me. Because if they were at loggerheads, then that just wouldn't work, right? Yeah. Because it's me as a person, therefore it's me as a business. Mm-hmm. So things that I do, I plant a tree in a different location every day. So that's a world over. So it might one day be in Indonesia. It might be then in, I don't know, Kenya, let's say. I wouldn't say climate change has affected my work per se, but I am conscious of it. As you say, if there's reams and reams of paper to be printed, then I will obviously be mindful of that. I don't own a printer. And one of the reasons for that is because I don't want to print and print and print. Mm-hmm. I do like to support different wildlife initiatives too, so to help them in their habitat. So not directly related to climate change, but I do proudly sponsor a rhino in Kenya called Lanku, and also some tigers in the Qatar corridor. So it was an exciting time when I received the updates from WWF and see how the animals are doing, and also kind of what the contributions have gone towards, because when you find out all the I think the last rhino update said that there'd not been any instances in the Kenyan district or in Kenya as a country actually within the last year of poaching, which is fantastic. So yeah, when you read things like that, you think it may only be a little amount each month that I'm putting towards it, but as the famous slogan goes, every little helps. So if everybody did that, then it'd amount to a lot more money, obviously.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So I'm going to move into the social media question, but before I do you ever use any of that as content? Because I'm sure you so could. Like, here's how my tigers are doing and my rhino's doing. Like, they'd be great posts. People would love that.
Well, just the other day, actually, on Twitter, I noticed it was World Rhino Day. And as a Leeds Rhinos fan as well, I thought, and it was on Friday, actually, because it was the Rhinos game.
So much synergy.
Exactly. I just thought, well, I've got to do a post about that. So, yes, I did that for the ahead of the Rhinos game on Friday. Yeah. And also talking about the Rhino updates. In fact, I've actually got the update still here from the post that I did on Friday. That was my latest Rhino update that I got, just to see how he's doing. Lanku. He's an old rhino now, but he's still looking good.
I mean, I would imagine they live a good few decades. A large mammal. Like, how long are they supposed to live generally?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the latest pictures and that, and reading the latest material, they're saying that. So this particular rhino is in his older years now. Yes, they do live a long time, but he's no longer the dominant rhino, so he's kind of been pushed to the perimeter.
His star's faded.
His star's faded, yes, exactly. Yeah, there's a new kid on the block, but saying he's still, as healthy as ever, enjoying his retirement almost, as it were. So, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we'll jump into social media itself then. So, I mean, I'd imagine it is, and especially setting up the business, you would probably have had to do a fair bit of social media. Obviously, you're going to do all your own social media, at least initially. Like, how much time have you had to spend on it, and how useful have you found it? Is it a boon or a bane, or is it both?
Well, it's huge, isn't it? Yeah. Social media is absolutely huge. And as you say, it lands at your doorstep, doing all the different promotional work initially. So a lot of my work has come through LinkedIn, so obviously social media platform. And as a result, kind of people kindly reviewing my editing, proofreading and copywriting work on different platforms. So yeah, social media is really, really significant. And with other people seeing the recommendations and that, which has been lovely for people to post, then then other people kind of getting in touch when they've seen that. And I saw it really take off for my business. So on Twitter or X or whatever we call it nowadays. I know social media often, and Twitter gets a bad rap because there can be some unsavory characters who use that platform. But I would say for every one of those, there's a lot of nice people on there.
Mm-hmm.
Because so to use an example, it's been really good for me and my business because back in September, I think it was 2022, I was chosen by Theo Pafitas from Dragon's Den as a Small Business Sunday winner. And it just came from just sending a tweet. So they say both on Twitter and Instagram to each Sunday, I think it is, to send a little message, promote your business, be a little bit different, tell people what it is you do, but be personable as well. And they just my Twitter account just exploded after that because, ironically, I was having a social media break that particular day. I'd scheduled this post, and then we had a day in Alnwick in Northumberland, and I left my phone thinking, I'd probably only use it for taking pictures. So my wife used her phone that day for taking pictures. I thought, I'm having a complete break from my phone this day. Got back to the hotel room at night time, and I saw like so many notifications. I'm thinking, oh, what's happened here?
Oh my God, what's happened?
yeah, exactly. I'm thinking, have
I been cancelled? What have I done?
I mean, the good thing with it being on social media is I wasn't worried about, because like when you get so many notifications or missed calls, your first thought is family, isn't it, or friends?
Yeah.
But given the fact it was on social media, that wouldn't be the case. Yeah. So the notifications were just off the scale. It was brilliant. I've never had as many notifications, and anyway, as a result, so each Small Business Sunday winner gets the opportunity to have like a designated networking hour on Twitter each Tuesday evening, called SBS Winners Hour. And as a result, I've made some really good business contacts, made good friends from it as well, who I've met with at the annual event that happens. I've only been to one because I've only won back in September 22, but I went to the February 2023 event down in Birmingham and got my certificate, had my picture with Theo Pavitas, etc., which was really good for business. So it makes your business stand out and get picked, and it can really increase exposure.
Well, I mean, it's that many people, that many followers, and if they put out your name to that many people, that's more than you can reach. Like, even if you're building a good following, it's just like so many more people than you can reach at that point. Like, just levels you up massively, doesn't it?
It does definitely. And like at the event, as a result of social media, it was brilliant. There was so many good keynote speakers. You could call on different like sessions for advice. And as I touched upon earlier, just being a business owner, you kind of, you know what you know, but there's so much to learn. And I love learning, but it was just so much and so good to learn so many different things. So, I mean, regarding social media, I'd also say that as a result of not only that, but also the different people who I work with and who I've stayed in touch with, even from my days of working for publishers, I love supporting them on social media. So not just in support of their projects or helping them advertise their services, but kind of when I've worked with somebody as well, then subsequently promoting their books or their e-learning or their programs, whatever it may be, that we've collaborated on, or their websites or their blogs that we've written together and things like that. I think just going back to the old supporting thing. So when small businesses support each other, I think it's wonderful because you don't know who knows who either, do you? So one person could be seeing it who likes something, and you never know. Know.
Yeah, very true. And all it takes is for it to land in the for a post to land in the right place at the right time, and it could change everything.
Yeah,
like, literally. Yeah.
I mean, there's that many platforms, isn't there? And I've try to be across. I mean, on Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn being the primary one, I would say, for my business. But yeah, I think although it's huge, I think, because there's only so many things you can do and only so many hours in a day. So I don't want to kind of dilute myself across all of them. I have probably about 6 months ago now set up a YouTube channel as well, just with different videos of advice and things like that and recommendations, like for if somebody's like editing a book or when's the best time to contact an editor or proofreader or whatever. But there's also like fun things on it as well. A good friend of mine is an alternative rapper. And I just thought, what can we do that's a little bit different for marketing? So he did a song and it was just fantastic. The first time I heard it, I was in stitches. I just thought, I see you, but I've never actually seen you filming things like this. And he's just it's just brilliant. I don't know how they do it. I really don't. It's just fantastic.
Well, if you send me the link, I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes, I will do.
People can have a look at that. I'm just thinking, do we want to say any more on social media? Or should we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much...
I think we covered that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go into the change question. So obviously, you have your own business. You kind of can change many things about how you work. But obviously, there's always things that you can't change. And this question gives you the freedom to mention any of them. So if you could change any 3 things about your work, like right now, what would you change?
That's a good question, is that. Being self-employed kind of brings with it that uncertainty of kind of where the next job might be coming from, as I've touched upon. So I've always worked in the employed sector, can I say, with guaranteed salary, etc. So it's been a big shift change. I suppose if I had a magic wand and could muster work for the full year, then that would be pretty cool. So I think retainer work for self-employed people is a really good one to have.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have like a regular client that's like your sort of main, or is it just just have an X amount of work every month to make sure? Like how do you work that in terms of for your own security? Is it like you do have a regular client that's kind of keeping things fairly secure, or?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a regular client. I think the crux of, yes, there's copywriting, which is a big part of my job, but when it comes down to the editing, especially, that sometimes it's on documents that, can you just edit this really quickly, which isn't a retainer, but predominantly it needs to be on, or it seems to be on books. So yes, it may be the case. I have had an instance where I edited somebody's book and they've subsequently brought out another book and wanted me to edit it. So that was nice for them to get back in touch, because it made me think, well, that's good. So I must have done a good job. But it seems to be a little bit more piecemeal, does the editing and proofreading for books, because obviously to put a book together takes quite a long time, as opposed to maybe, interviewing and putting a blog up for somebody and writing a blog. So that tends to be on a retainer basis. I'm always on the lookout for them, definitely. So yeah, anyone's listening who wants a blog writing, by all means, please do get in touch. Shameful plug done. Yeah, so I'd say that is a big part of it, the retainer. One thing, I'm just going to switch this on its head a little bit, this question, before I go on to the next bit, if this is okay.
Yeah.
And one thing I wouldn't change is my focus on collaboration. I love collaborating. So I've seen examples of some sole traders who see others doing the same thing as them, and they won't speak to people who don't do the same thing. And personally, I just think that's quite short-sighted, because there's always people you can learn from. Yeah. And you will never be the only person doing what you're doing, will you? So in my mind, it's all about embracing that learning, seeing what you can pick up from them, what tips you might be able to give them, and looking where you can potentially link up with others. I've had a couple of really good, healthy examples and collaborations where I've worked with fellow wordsmiths, whether that's on editing and proofreading project, or whether it's or copywriting, because there has been times that I've been at capacity or another person's been at capacity. Because we've collaborated previously, we know each other's kind of work, then it's worked. So I think collaboration is key, definitely.
Yeah. I have a similar approach of just like, well, even if there are people that are doing the same thing or doing this thing that I want to do, it's like, well, I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. And I will, and I will want to work with and will work with probably different people because, people are different as well. The customers come in all different shapes and sizes as well as the businesses. So, they have different tastes, different approaches, just like the businesses do. So they want different things, and there are different audiences and there is enough for everyone, so long as you can get to your customers. That's the hard thing, isn't it? And I think you've kind of, to a degree, you got lucky with that, but you've also cracked it. Like you kind of been in the places and you've been around enough that you've got like a good reputation and those testimonials and so on. There is a client base for you. I mean, from what you've said, correct me if I'm wrong here, it wasn't finding the clients initially and stuff didn't seem like the work was already there, or it was fairly easy to get because you had the connections and experience. Is that a fair assessment?
I wouldn't say it was fairly easy to get. I did have,
but you weren't starting from like scratch. You weren't sort of an unknown quantity.
No, I suppose not. Yes, I had worked with different people previously at different organizations, and I think one of the first things that I did when I knew I was going to set up a business was kind of make sure they knew that I was setting up a business, and if they ever needed my services. And it just turns out I've just completed a job for somebody I used to work with quite closely with, and it's just how that's worked. It's great because there's been like 3 particular jobs for this one particular client. So there's always that, not just networking, but there's always that element of just kind of trying to remain active on social media and remain visible, because nothing comes easily, does it? So I think you need to work for it. So
and you've got to keep your sort of, you've got to keep people's awareness of you as well, haven't you, to a degree? But then like you were saying with the networking and meeting people and making those connections, there's always that sort of thing where you kind of bookmark people yourself mentally, and like people who have worked with you before who will be like, oh, I'd really like to work with Craig on this, or they'd be really useful to have in on this project, or so that's an element to it as well. And like you say, it's doing good work and being, and that includes the kind of good customer service side, the collaborative side, like giving a good experience and giving people what they want, that they feel happy with the product that they've got.
Yeah, definitely as well. And when you are chatting to different people, thinking how you can link them with different people as well, because there's been instances of that where it has actually resulted in business between 2 people who have been contacts at different networking events, and they've gone off to have a chat and subsequently done work, which is fantastic. So one thing I didn't mention actually in the 3 things you would change about your work, this is one I probably would change, and my take on it may be different to other people's given their industry. But I would say, the buzz phrase about AI at the moment, that kind of complete reliance on it from a copywriting perspective. I appreciate that this very much kind of does relate to the industry that people are in. So I can only speak about the one I operate in, but with copywriting and the likes of ChatGPT that we're seeing, I think to approach that with an element of caution, because yes, it may help people as a starting point with their copy if they need it, and I think it's great for that. But I think it's important to stress that it doesn't, as yet, kind of give the full, bespoke, authentic production of something that the likes of a personal interview does. So say like an interview where you can, you're actively listening for things, because when I do interviews for blogs, it may be the case that there's an absolute gem of a comment that we can pin the blog on, but that doesn't come until like, halfway through an interview, let's say. But when you hear that, as with any good interview, when you hear different things, you can kind of go off on a tangent with that, because you might think, well, that could be information for the future, or this particular content or whatever, before kind of going back onto the questions. And I'm not completely sure that you can have that complete element of that with AI at the moment, because after all, people buy from people, don't they? So I mean, yes, technology, I think it's fantastic. It's always rapidly developing. It's here to stay. But I think just promoting that understanding of human interaction, it's still very much alive and well. And I think that probably goes for networking as well. We all enjoy online events, but equally face to face.
Yeah. I mean, I would add to that. I agree with everything you said there, but I would add to that in terms of what you're getting with a person, and especially a person with experience, is comprehension and understanding. And so-called artificial intelligence can't do that, because it can't understand. It doesn't know, and it can't understand. It's a machine following just a program. It's not aware. It can't think. It doesn't know anything. So whereas the structure of copy and how it should work and what's the best way, like it can replicate that or a version of it, but it doesn't know what it's done. Like it couldn't explain to you what it's done, because it can't explain, because it can't think or know.
Completely. I think you get to know people as well. So when you have preliminary chats before you do interview somebody for a blog, let's say, or meet them for a coffee and either do an interview there or whatever it may be, you're able to gauge, like, will this person maybe feel comfortable me asking them about this? Whereas, yes, it's very, as the phrase suggests, artificial. I'm very much an advocate of either face-to-face contact or, actually meeting people online. Yes, that's fine, but doing that personal one-to-one or that one-to-two, however many people you're interviewing, of course, or presenting, rather than just hitting a button and letting AI do it for you. I think we're in danger of maybe becoming a little bit lazy. I think there's a lot we can learn from AI, I really do. But I just think when it comes to writing for somebody, you want to get to the nitty-gritty of what they're wanting out of it. And I'm not sure we're at that stage with it.
Because I think that's very interesting. Could we go on a quick diversion with that? Because, so I've mentioned this on the podcast before, like, we've invented more and more and more and more forms of communication, and every one of them is all supposed to be like, oh, this is amazing and democratizing and will change the world and all this, that, and the other. And to a degree, there's an element in which, I mean, you definitely see this in social media of like, oh, well, it's also marvelous, anyone can contact anyone and all of this, but also, oh, it's awful and it's a nightmare and it's made our lives hell. So, but I think fundamentally there, it's very easy to think that communication is straightforward. And I don't think it is at all. I think part of the reason we've invented all these forms of communication is because it's really, really, really hard to just actually get an idea across. Even if we're speaking the same language, it's because there's so much to your communication. We know this from Zoom of like you lose certain, facial reactions and body movements, and because the frame rate's out and all of these kind of things, and so much more of your communications non-verbal rather than verbal. There's all these sort of things. And I think, what you're saying there in terms of that knowledge of being able to transmit the idea, so that like really the key there is for you initially to receive it, like to really understand it and go, yes, you have communicated this thing that I now know what you need to do. And now we can both work together to try and communicate this to everybody else.
Yeah.
I just your kind of thoughts or feedback on that kind of perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, communication is key, but also miscommunication is key. Because you miscommunicate something, especially with social media, and it's not good, is it? Because it's out there. It's not good. But I think it's, as I say, I can only kind of speak about from my particular viewpoint, but I really like to get to know the business, the people who I work with, because I think that makes the best work that I can possibly do, because I'm invested.
Yeah.
I'm wanting to find out ultimately what the person wants to achieve by what we are going to be doing. And from the outset, what audience they want to reach. Is it far reaching, or is it one particular audience? So there's been examples on recent interviews and blogs that I've written where people have wanted to focus on the over 40s. Now, finding that information out at the outset was crucial, because the kind of the pre-work that I did, the questions that I then put to them ahead of the interview, so there were no surprises, so they knew what they were going to be asked. That was formed by this communication. I said this, not miss there. And I really do think that's key. And as I say, there can be, during the course of an interview, you can really pick up on something and think, oh, that would be good. I'd like to explore that a little bit further. And I think having that human to human interaction allows you to do that. Not sure you can do that just yet on AI. It's about that bespoke nature of it, and ultimately quality, because what you are putting out not only represents you and your business and the person that you are working on behalf of, but it needs to be good. It needs to be top notch, because the market is so diluted. There's that much out there. You need to make sure that you've got a fantastic opening, you've got a really enticing stand first that people will want to read on, because as I often say to people, first impressions count, don't they? And I think that goes for any copy or editing or proofreading, from my line of work and any line of work at all, because we all only get one chance to make a first impression, don't we?
Yeah. And like you say, it might be easy to stop someone in their scroll on something just to grab their attention, but then what comes next? Holding that next bit of attention is as vital. Like, oh, fine, you've got my eyes for a second. Can you hold them till you can get to the call to action?
And that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, because people's attention spans are less and less and less. There's that much out there for them to look at, opportunities available to them to look at. So yeah, just being able to entice them in, making sure, as you say, there's enough still there in the content before you get to that call to action, and making sure there is that call to action. I think that's key in things as well, because you've sometimes seen things and thinking, oh, that sounds good, where next?
Yeah.
How do I follow this up?
Yeah. Where do I join?
Yeah, exactly. Then it's just stopped. So yeah, I think that's really, really important.
Okay, so I'll jump onto the UBI question quickly, and then I'll pass it over to you. So if there was a universal basic income, you're familiar with the universal basic income, I assume? Yeah. So if there was a UBI, how do you think it might change things for you? Would you still be doing what you're doing now? If you would still be doing that, would you be doing it the same way? Like maybe you might do lesser hours, or you might feel a bit more secure to take more risks or something like that. Like, how do you think it might change things for you?
And one thing's for sure, yeah, it's all about equality, which is fantastic. How much it would change it for me? There was a talk quite a while back, wasn't there, about well, it wasn't that long ago actually, but it feels quite a while back, about people going to a kind of a 4-day working week. You're seeing some people doing that. I think as a result of COVID, you're getting more people who are thinking, okay, is this me now? Or do I want a better work-life balance? Will I take different days off?
Mm.
And I touched upon earlier in the chat that we said that I initially struggled with work-life balance. So to go to something like 4 days, I might struggle with that initially. Maybe I need training in that. I don't know, but yeah, I think there's definitely scope for it, and for it to be equality for all, most definitely, because I do think that people can benefit from working with other people who are, on that linear structure. I think, yes, there's always going to be kind of grades, isn't there? So, maybe your high up surgeons and things like that. But I think there could be scope for it, definitely. It'd be interesting to see what would happen in society in general. There probably would be uproar from certain people, less so from others. It would be interesting to see if we could reach a balance, reach an agreement. You'd like to think the way the world is going that there's a clamour for equality. So you see it in the pay divides, really. I still think there's some work to go there and to be done. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to see what would occur.
Definitely. And in a good way as well. There's a lot of things where you wouldn't really want to see what the world was like if that thing happened. This, you kind of well, how bad could it be, really? But it could be awful. Who knows? Yeah, because there's always unexpected consequences as well, isn't there? So maybe everyone would stop working and we'd all just lie down. But I doubt it.
It would be interesting times. I think there's more qualified people to discuss this than me. But it would be interesting times, certainly.
This is the point where I throw it over for socials, and then if there's anything that you want to talk about or anything you want to revisit, anything you want to ask me, this is basically your part of the show, so we can do whatever we want here. So do you want to kick us off with the socials where people can find you, and then whatever you want to talk about? If there's nothing, then we can sort of wrap it up from there. Or
yeah, that's fine. So yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Craig Smith. I am making words work for you. I've also got a business profile on LinkedIn, which is CRS Editorial. And I'm also on, I was going to say X, but it just sounds wrong still. I'm also on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it X.
And I'm on there, and my handle is at CRS Editorial. I've recently set up a YouTube channel, as I say, just different videos and things like that of what hopefully people will find useful to do with editing, proofreading, copywriting, like when they might want some help and different things they can turn to. And on my website, which is crseditorial.co.uk, there's quite a lot of different blogs, tips, different writing tips, editing and proofreading tips. And there's also the rap video in the About section that I mentioned to you. So just advertising in a little different manner. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for socials for now.
Yep. And all those links will be in the show notes as usual. So I mean, we could go back and talk a little bit more about the networking, or we could cover anything else that you want to talk about. I mean, I know you said at the beginning that there's a networking session coming up in October. So you might want to mention that. Where can people find out about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So yes, the next. So I run a networking in Leeds at Roundhay Park. Always starts at 11 a.m. Meet outside the mansion. I've been running it for quite a few months now, probably over a year, probably over 2 years actually, because I started it around about 2021. Yeah, I think it's over 2 years. It's amazing how quickly time goes. So yeah, it's the next one is on Wednesday, the 18th of October. Go for a nice relaxed walk and talk around the park, around the lake, and then go for a coffee afterwards. Generally tends to last about an hour and a half. They run monthly. And then we have, yes, I've already booked them in for November and December, and then I will get my act together and book them in for 2024 as well. But people can find out about them by visiting my LinkedIn page.
Mm-hmm.
We have a designated chat as well. So if anyone wants to join, please let me know. And I'll bob you into the chat, and you can see all the different dates and the people in there to make more connections.
Cool.
So that's that, yes. And I forget what your other question was.
No, it's just like if there's anything that you want to cover, anything else that you want to talk about. I mean, is that if there's anything that you want to promote that's maybe coming up, or yeah. I mean, if you don't have anything that you want to particularly say, that's fine. I know it kind of puts people on the spot sometimes, this bit. But yeah, I think it's just a nice space, because sometimes people, they go through the whole interview and then they're suddenly kind of like, I now have loads of questions for you. So it's nice to kind of give that opportunity for people to say anything. And sometimes when I ask people to sort of tell me, you know, when the bit where I say, tell me if there's anything that you want me to talk about in particular on the recording, I don't always remember, because I'm going through this, you know, you're trying to remember. I should write stuff down, but then I'll be doing notes all the time. And I think I want to try and engage with you as much as possible through this, rather than trying to be doing other things. But I also have to do certain other things, like keep an eye on the time and pay attention to other bits. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about maybe ideal client, or who would like to work with, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's do that. So yeah, what would be your ideal client?
Well, I absolutely love sport, and I have had the pleasure of writing for some good magazines and interviewing some high-profile sports people, editing and proofreading some really good books. As a big football fan, I suppose more of the work I would absolutely love would be to get books about sport and autobiographies and the like. So with this, I can combine my love of words, offering editing suggestions, making recommendations, etc., whilst editing the books themselves. But it's also a combination with sport. So I've recently edited a football manager's autobiography, a manager from years gone by, and the launch is going to be fairly soon. And I absolutely loved it. It was super entertaining to edit, but at the same time, I was just thinking of all these different names. But there's always that objectivity. So I'm not actually reading it as a fan. That will come afterwards. So once it's printed, once I've got it, then I will read it as a fan of football and sport. So yeah, I mean, just kind of touching upon that, like complete care and attention goes into kind of all of that work. So whether it's fact or fiction, print or digital, whatever it is, but sport or nature, absolutely love nature as well. Would be the ideal, really, I'd say.
Yeah. Is there a novel inside you burning to get out? Or are you just kind of, no, I'm happy with being a wordsmith and kind of doing this? Or are you like a frustrated poet or anything?
Maybe in the fullness of time, who knows? I have fleetingly thought about different subjects, but I'm super invested in helping other people right now. So I think I know how much goes into writing a book.
Yeah.
And if I was to do that, it would detract from, you know, the work that I'm doing in my business. And as I say, my business is only 3 years old next week. By the time this goes out, it'll be 1st of October, 3 years old. So yeah, I would say maybe in the future, never say never, but right now I'm too invested in what I'm doing for my clients, really.
Yeah, I mean, I just had to ask because, you know, and as well, I guess thinking about you saying it'd be great to have kind of more sports content again, like it just made me think, like, is he a secret novelist? Like,
I mean, I think whatever it is, you know, because there's been genres of books I've done, like there's been many fact, many fiction books, many business books. I think whatever you do, the words are super powerful. That's the right words and the wrong words. You know, as I touched upon, we only have kind of one chance to make a first impression. So take proofreading, for example. I've done a few presentations about kind of the oversight when it comes to proofing, like, you know, like signage for businesses or road signs or promotional leaflets. restaurant menus, key stakeholder documents, that kind of thing, because in my mind, are people going to get buy-in for whatever they're selling or promoting if they don't show kind of due care and attention to kind of getting their words right first time?
Mm-hmm.
As a proofreader of, as I say, 27 years all told, it takes a lot less time than you'd think, and to spot misdemeanors and different things and using a proofreader could be the difference between someone investing in a product or service, or just kind of walking on by, or not replying to an email, or whatever it may be, the communication method. I genuinely believe that words are that important, because the wrong message, it can be damaging, as equally as the right message can be super encouraging and get people on board.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, it wasn't too sort of, I can see your appreciation for your own craft and for their own sort of work, but as well, working in that, it's kind of a trope, isn't it, of like, I don't know, suppose it's like Tarantino working in a video store of like, I'm doing this to be close to what I love kind of thing. But I mean, yeah, you don't, yeah, I had to ask, but yeah, I don't see any kind of frustrated, novelist in there. Because and it's its own reward, isn't it? Because you're looking at so many different types of things, and you just, if you were writing for yourself, I suppose you could start researching all these things, but it's so much easier just to do what you know, and then just have all these different bits of things that you're going through and going, oh, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. I think an element of kind of me getting my creative juices flowing as well comes in the copywriting that I do. So when I'm writing content for websites or writing blogs, that enables me to kind of, tick that box, as it were, for my own kind of creative sense. So yeah, I think that's probably that for now. But I have a wide interest of like hobbies and things like that, and I love being out and about in nature. So yeah, one day, you never know.
That's it.
But
anything can happen.
Exactly. There's so much as well, what you could actually write about. As I say, sport's a big passion. I don't know. You got me thinking again now.
Thank you again to Craig for being my guest. You can find Craig at crsedtorial.co.uk or book a meeting at calendarly.com/CRS editorial. You can join the networking group next Wednesday, the 18th of October, via Eventbrite. The link for that is in the show notes. You can follow Craig on socials, linkedin.com/IN/CraigSmith81, twitter.com/CRS editorial, or you can find them on YouTube. And if you want to have a look at the wrap that Craig mentioned, again, the link is in the show notes. I will try and return to a more regular release schedule soon. I still need lots of guests, so keep letting me know if and when you're up for being interviewed, and keep recommending to people that they should be on the podcast. Thanks as always to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. If you're in Leeds or from Leeds, if you are Leeds, then please come on the show. Yes, I am speaking to you. I still need to find over 899 learners to interview, so being a guest is a massive help. Remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe to Working Hours, and please consider supporting Working Hours financially with either a regular or a one-off donation of any amount. You can email Working Hours at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Okay, that's me. Work for peace and plan with kindness. Cheers, ears, take care out there, and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited, and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Follow Western Studios Leeds on Facebook at facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds, and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Western Studios Leeds will help you realize your podcast for only £25 for an hour of podcast work. Need podcast production, recording, editing, or any podcast admin doing? Need it all doing? Do you want or need a podcast host or co-host for your podcast project? Then get in touch with Western Studios Leeds Limited. Email makemypodcast@western-studios.com to get your podcast made. I am available to third sector organisations, small to medium-sized businesses and individuals who want to make podcasts or create other digital audio content. Want to make some fundraising case studies? Want to show off your expertise in your field? Want some help creating your show and format, or just some support learning to podcast and getting going? Whatever your podcast needs, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds. Go to western-studios.com and use the contact page to drop me a message about either working hours or about your own podcast project.